It does come up once you start going. Just right. Yep.
All right. Well, the clock on the wall is pointing to 6 o'clock, so we're going to start this month's city council meeting. I'm Craig Falcon, the council president, and our mayor, Emily Durand, is out of town. In fact, she's out of the country. So we'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we don't have a guest speaker, I don't believe. So our next item is public comments. So if anybody wants to make a public comment, they can come up. And please state your name and address, and we ask you to keep your comments a few minutes.
My name is Brenda Pearson, 136 Bridge Avenue, Wabasha. And just to let you know, there are 2 people walking here that probably have public comments. That's why I'm here to support them. But mostly, I still, I'm going to say it till I'm out of business, that I would like the council, and I'll have to go to the other meeting as well, to continue to create a level playing field for all vacation rentals, Airbnbs, and to please consider putting something on the books before 1 to 2 properties on our Main Street Pembroke locations on the street level turn into vacation rentals. I myself and one of the other persons coming have looked for property for a business that we could share, and there's absolutely just nothing affordable or available for a gift shop slash healing and service business. So I just ask that you do that, and then I know that they wanted to talk and state something about the potential assessments that will be coming to the Bridge, Main Street, and Pembroke areas that the construction will be happening. And that information is extremely important to get out to all of us as soon as possible, so that we can plan our future. Because for myself, being in the unique situation I am, and on a corner, I'm sure my assessments will be doubled, as well as my business will be completely shut down because of the fact that it's an overnight lodging facility, and starting construction at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. would hinder that as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Can we take 8:14 and make it 10:05 off the consent?
Let's say 14.
Yeah.
No, there's a 14.
Yeah, approval for Gunderson.
You got changed.
It did not get changed. It's been there the whole time.
Oh,
It says
you got
0.
renumbered because you had a 0.
Yeah, it's 0.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay. No.
I'm right on the website, so it's,
It's 8:14 on the website.
Yeah.
It's 0 on
gotcha.
Okay.
I think you got a walker coming up.
Okay.
All right. And you want to put that in general business?
Yeah, 10:05. Thanks.
We have 2 zeros.
Come on in.
Sorry, I was at, you know, the room.
You want to speak? Time is now, so Dave, you can walk.
We can go back and visit that area. Do you want to make a public comment?
Hi.
I ask that you state your name and address.
Okay, yeah, Dave Satry, 220 Main, number 2. went to the meeting the other day for the, sorry, I just ran, I'm not much of a runner. The monies that they put out were insane. $6.3 million.
Which money's?
The money's for the Main Street project.
Okay.
So am I okay to talk about that? This is my first city council meeting here.
Yeah, we don't comment back, we'll listen to what you have to say.
Okay. $6.3 million project based on the numbers today. There's been a city project that comes in a budget in 20 years. So, and added about 7.5%. Sorry, I just ran. Inflation. This is huge. According to the numbers they put out, 1.4 is budget. The city hall is going to kick in, I believe, 400,000. The remainder will come from bonds and the members of Main Street, the Second, the Pembroke, the Tower Road. I've done my quick numbers. I'm looking at about 150 taxpayers in that right there, responsible for today $4.5 million. I have spoken with two financial advisors. One mine who I've had up in the cities for over 25 years. I spoke to one who just graduated, credential or whatever it was, this month. I wanted to get what is being put out today about city bonds. Both of them told me, unless you already have a ton of money, they're useless. They're good for about 2 to 3% if you get everything back. Again, inflation today is running at 7.5%, and it's not getting any better. So between today and then, we're looking at a shortfall, even with city bonds, of a 12% on top of the 4.5 million we're already responsible for. So just don't see how this is feasible. If you do the math, it's about $40,000 a person per tax. That's a lot of money for a property I pay $45,000 for. Kind of, it's to me, it's absurd, it's ridiculous. And I just can't understand why we're suddenly the only people responsible for a street which the city is now touting, historic Main Streets, all over historic Main Street. There's a reason people come to Wabasha. It's not to be, I don't even know the name of the street. It's not 5th Street, it's not 6th. They come to Main Street. So why are only about 150 people on the hook for some pretty excessive numbers? Where I'm at. So I was also extremely disappointed. I talked with Dean the other day. I said I thought that no members from the council showed up. I was told that Mr. Lund.
I was there.
Okay, well, if I may, shame on both of you. No one said a word saying I'm from the city. You allowed this contractor, who was extremely arrogant.
He's a city engineer.
He just had a tag on that had the name for the company. Okay, so I didn't realize that. It had a company name. I thought he was a company employee. He was extremely condescending. And I'm sure he had Kamala Harris, oh my God, nuclear war, let's laugh. Twitch, and everything he said, oh, I'll get you down to 35, buddy. He pats me on the back. 35, buddy. That's when I left. Like, that was ridiculous. To him, it was funny. I'm not laughing. I'm just not laughing at this project. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please state your name and address.
I'm Cindy Satry, and I'm actually here to talk about the availability of spaces on Main Street for new businesses starting up that would be a draw for people coming into town. And my concern, how so many of the buildings are being used for VRBOs or housing of people coming into town. So I've been looking for a space to start a new business for about the last 7, 8 months, and keep getting told that they're changing their units on Main Street in Pembroke into VRBOs or nightly rentals or whatever. So I just like everybody to be kind of cognizant of that, and it's really hard to start a new business when the buildings that are coming in are either going to be VRBO or insurance or financial planners, which isn't really the opportunity. That's, just wanted you guys to all kind of keep that in mind in planning. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're back to changes or additions to the agenda. Any others besides Brian's? Okay, the mayor's off on vacation. So we can do you have a presentation you want to make, Caroline?
Sure. Yep, it's in the agenda packet. But just kind of what's coming up is that at the July council meeting, we will be looking at the report that Bolton and Mank is going to do a preliminary look at where the assessments are going to be for the project. And so just keep that July council meeting in mind. So that will be on the agenda, and we do publish all of our agendas online. And then there's a downtown survey on our website as well, right there on the homepage, to provide input on streetscaping for the downtown and just general improvements that you'd like to see to the downtown. So that's right there on our homepage. And then in the administrator's report, I've just included kind of an update on our big strategic goal items. So for the Highway 60 reroute and athletic field development, we did meet with Deed. It doesn't look promising at all that we'll get our bonding requests funded. Tony is going to be convening a steering committee for the athletic field, and we're going to just reach back out to the DOT to talk about what opportunities there might be to fund our reroute project. For the barge terminal project, Tyler is going to be posting online in the next few days comments for the environmental review. So the initial scoping of the project is going to be out there online. We had a lot of comments from the Isaac Walton League. And then at the July Port Authority meeting, there would be a public hearing on that environmental review. I worked with Brian today to finalize our numbers to go back to the Army Corps of what our tipping fee is. And so I think that looks pretty good. Tyler and I are confident that our tipping fee numbers is going to cover the potential debt on the project, any staffing required. So I think that number looks good. It has gone up from when we originally negotiated, but I don't think it's unreasonable. And the City Port Authority launched a child care grant program last week, and it was featured on KTTC News and the Winona Post. And I think kind of just for the rest of it, our first responders have been really busy these past few weeks since summer started. Calls are up amongst all departments. And I think and then for EMT week, we did do a push to just do positive media coverage. I think I covered that last month. So all I have.
Any other comments from the committee reports? We want to go through employees?
We didn't do anything of note worth bringing up in here, so.
Okay. How about planning?
Yeah, so we discussed short-term rentals, so basically Airbnbs, VRBOs, other individuals that own and have that as well. So we discussed kind of our options and what we are planning to do. I know next week at our planning commission, we're going to have a discussion about the uses of some of those areas and getting that onto our ordinances, as well as drafting some regulations for that, and how best to accommodate some of that. I don't think we'll get into the weeds of every step the city is going to take, but we'll definitely start talking about zoning ordinance changes and stuff like that. So more to come on that next month.
Thank you. Port Authority.
We met we meet the third Tuesday of every month, so May 17th we met. We had another approval for HVAC grant program, and we took care of that. That was for the Old Triangle Pub. Our emergency loan program that we provided to businesses during COVID, that's all current. Everyone's paid on time for that, continuing that. We, through our revolving loan fund program, we closing a loan for the Anderson House. It's one part of a continuing series of improvements that they're going to make to that property. We also approved a loan for another business that's going to be located in one of the vacant spots at the old city hall. So that'll be forthcoming as well. We talked about recapitalizing our revolving loan fund and what we could do there. And did we see anything? I think that's it.
Just wanted to add, because it came out, we did send out a lot of letters to non-compliant owners of Airbnb and VRBOs, and we reviewed the list, and we're at about 90% compliance. There's a couple people that haven't responded that Tyler is going to be following up with a phone call. But it turns out, I don't know, people were unaware of their obligations, or they thought Airbnb was paying it for them. So we did some education. Airbnb, they automatically get sent their sales tax gets taken out of their rental of the lodging. And that can be confusing to people because that sales tax is actually, part of it is labeled Wabasha County sales tax. So we discovered that people saw Wabasha County sales tax and assumed that that was our lodging tax. So we're also going to be putting something on Facebook and online, but the letters were effective and we just need to follow up with a couple people, and we're hoping that we don't need to pursue litigation, but we are willing to do that if we need to. But just kind of one person that we brought into compliance, the amount that the city of Wabasha kept on that one person was $1.79 that we're capturing in admin costs. So we reviewed that we can't legally capture more in admin costs, but we're certainly not covering our costs and time and effort to collect the tax as we're passing on to the chamber. And we think that it's great that the chamber receives that funds. It's just that our admin costs aren't being currently covered. So.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Tony's gonna.
Streets.
We did not have a street commission meeting today. We didn't have a quorum, and the park board last month we didn't have a quorum meeting, so didn't have a meeting. I did want to introduce Bradley Costello. He's on the agenda tonight for hire for assistant public works director. I think I passed his resume out to you, so it kind of looked pretty darn good, I thought, and hopefully it'll be a good fit for Wabasha.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. So we've got, I'll start with number 1, approval of minutes, and we'll come to number 0 at the end. Approval of minutes for the May 3rd meeting, Board of Equal and Equalization minutes from their 4/21 to 5/9 meetings. The May 17th special city council meeting minutes. The minutes of the special council and Port Authority minutes. There's a concession stand slushy machine replacement. Pool ADA access chair replacement. Approval of the policy on temporary assignment to higher position. Approval of full-time assistant public works director. Approval of hiring for part-time EMT position. Board and commission appointment for the park board. And there's the warrants. And there's an application for a food truck permit. And then there's the approval of contract with Gunderson Health System Ambulance to provide business analysis on the Wabasha ambulance service, not to exceed $14,000. Which we got a grant for $10,000.
So we're gonna, we pulled that though, right?
Yeah.
We pulled that. We're right.
Right.
Zero.
That's gonna be item number 5, general business.
Right.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Second.
We have a first by Ryan and a second by Tim. Or was it
Dave.
Dave? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. All not in favor, say aye. Okay, approved. We don't have a public hearing on the board. So we're to general business. First item is the wage and class study.
Okay, so this is something that was captured in the strategic plan that we worked on, and it is a priority for myself and for staff. We currently have, sorry, I'm just actually trying to pull this up. It's disappeared on me. Okay. My minutes here. We've got 2 quotes in here. And part of this is we have a step and class system that has never been analyzed by a third-party consultant. So the goal of the study is to look and ensure that all employees are paid fairly and have a step and class that makes sense both internally and reflects the current job market. So the study is going to look at everyone's job descriptions, their current class and steps, market pay in cities in our region with a similar size. So we have 2 quotes in there. We're looking authorization up to the highest amount, but staff is going to continue to look at references. One is from the higher amount is from Flaherty and Hood, which we have experience working with them and we have confidence in them. The second quote is from David Drown, not Mike Bubani portion of David Drown, but they actually have an HR consulting firm. I've spoken to several other cities. Most cities go through this process every 6 to 7 years. It's pretty best practice. We've never gone through it, which is why I'm recommending it. In particularly knowing that our equity, our laws are coming up where we have to pass certain tasks set by the state. And then the other thing that happened is with our union negotiations, we did approve for next year some wage increases based on the market pay for our police union. And so we want to use this wage study to look at how we can make that fair, at least look at the data for all employees. I imagine the biggest question for everybody is, how are we gonna, if the survey comes back and says we're underpaying staff, how are we gonna afford that or incorporate it? We asked this of the consultants. They recommend a phased approach. So they'll usually place the employee on the step closest to what they're making, but then they look over the long term of having a potential higher earning, whereas now many employees in the next 2 years are basically out of steps and they don't continue to move up the scale. And I think one of the things we're thinking about is just making sure that our pay is comparable to other communities to continue to retain staff. And I don't know, Wendy or Tony, if you want to just add anything I missed, or Tyler. Wendy and Tyler have been on the calls, so. Okay. So we plan to use our ARPA dollars. We had a total of 60,000 set aside for general costs. About 25,000 of that is spoken for. I think this is a good use of the funds, just again, addressing that employee retention. And the other thing of note is, even if they come up with a study and it's determined that it's absolutely not affordable for us to implement it, the council is under no obligation to implement the recommendation. So But I have talked with other administrators and no one said that it wasn't possible to implement overtime in a reasonable way, so.
What were the quotes for these?
We got, the Flaherty and Hood was 14.5, and then the David Drown one is in there. Do you remember, Tyler? What's 65? Yeah.
Does that cover everything? You've got a number of parts to that.
It does. I think the 65 does, right? We looked at that. Yeah. I think, I think the difference with Flaherty Hood is you're getting, maybe more attorney advice on all of it. So, you know, we'll probably go with the lower quote unless we hear negative reviews on the lower quote, but.
Well, don't we have to, doesn't council have to approve that? Don't we make that decision, do you?
Well, I guess we're,
I'm looking at it
I
now.
mean,
You're looking
You're
at
looking
the
at-
budget up to 14.5,
yeah.
and then they choose, but we could just pick ourselves.
I mean, if you guys want to say go with the 65, that's fine. I don't,
That's option 3, and then they have ongoing maintenance for $4,000 each year.
yeah, and I think we're not, that would be in a future budget beyond this, so we would ask for approval, but our goal is to be something where it doesn't need an 18 every year, so, but.
Do you know offhand how often the pay equity review is to the state?
Every
Every 2 years? So I know we've had to readjust because of that in the past, and so if we're a little proactive with this, it
Mhm.
makes some sense. I'd be willing to approve the David Drown 6,500 at this point.
We have a motion to approve the David Drown
Second.
in a second. Discussion?
I just wanted to say, at first, I kind of thought this was a waste of money, because usually it just comes back that everyone's underpaid. But I called Carolyn, we had a big discussion about the class steps, which I did have experience with the police union negotiations, and a lot of it just seems random. So I think that this would be useful in just cleaning things up. So I changed my tune, so I support it.
Okay. Any others? Okay, so we have a motion to approve David Drown Associates for 6,500 wage and class study. All in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Thanks.
Okay.
So now we're looking at approval of $25,000 for Parks and Trails on their strategic plan.
Mhm.
And as I understand, we have 15,000 coming from SHIP.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, just to briefly summarize what's there in the agenda summary, our current Parks and Trails plan is 13 years old and out of date. So there's some ADA concerns that aren't addressed in the existing plan. Trails are referred to generally, but no maps included. It doesn't incorporate our current plans for Highway 60 and the relocation of athletic fields. There's flooding issues. And I mean, it's 13 years old, and Tony and I apply for a lot of grants, and they always ask you, where is this documented in a plan? And it just, I think it's going to get questioned to refer to a plan that's 13 years old, and does that truly reflect what our current residents think and want to prioritize? But it was interesting, from the 2009 plan, I saw things that are still discussed, like improved tennis courts. We did the upgrading of the pool, improved volleyball courts is still discussed. The athletic field was mentioned 13 years ago. A dog park was mentioned. I don't know that a development of an indoor sports facility is still really discussed or on the table. A paintball course isn't definitely not a goal anymore. But it did talk about additional drinking fountains and shaded rest areas, and I think that's been completed. And then the Eagle Basin Neighborhood Park, we still haven't accomplished that, but that was identified. So, and then Veterans Park improvements is underway. So we have 15,000 coming out of SHIP and 10,000 coming out of our planning consultants line, and that's been budgeted. And I have Sam Kessel on the line here. I don't know, Sam, if you're in a way we could see you, but he's prepared to answer questions about the plan. He was able to share some other community plans. We'll have a steering committee. And so that was my other question. And again, I think it will help us in planning purposes, what goes in the 2023 capital improvement budget, and then helps us apply for grants. So.
And what firm is he with?
He's also with Bolton and May, so
Okay.
he's working on the downtown plan, and we already discussed kind of making sure that the downtown plan is incorporated with this one.
So we invite your comments.
Sam, do you want to make any, well, I think Brian had some questions, so Sam's prepared to answer those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you
Sam,
hear me, Sam?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. I guess my first question was, is there a version of this that we can just use the grant money? Like a $15,000 version?
Yeah.
And maybe cut some things that we look at here so that it's all paid for with grant money?
Correct. The one thing we looked at on this was if we could parcel off the trails piece, because that is something that really needs the work done for the trails, because that's not part of the current 2009 plan of how the trails come in. And in looking at it, having that be a separate piece, that gives opportunity for that to be added in the future, or as tied on to another piece of a project, to bring the cost down on this one.
And then Sam had also said that if you wanted to cut 5,000,
There,
you could take out the SWOT analysis, which would be just an analysis of what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Was that correct, Sam?
that's right. That would just kind of put the SWOT analysis more on city staff to provide us with what they feel those, the SWOT would be the strengths, the weaknesses, and the threats, and just kind of take our third party opinion out and just.
And I think Tony and I appreciated the thought of having a third party come look at our parks and just provide a neutral perspective versus kind of what we think, because they look at a lot of other communities' parks. So I think we thought that that was an advantage. And then the final thing you came up with was to cut 3,000 maybe?
There was it kind of stretched a little bit. Maybe we could cut a little bit out of some of the outreach and rely more on staff, city staff, to present at councils and to present at park boards, and reduce the outreach piece.
And
Well,
yeah.
one of the things, when we had the bookstore, and we had it during the soar with the Eagles and everything, we'd have people walking by on their way to St. Felix Auditorium to look at some of the Eagle shows, but they would stop in, we'd get crowd stopping, and everybody, the uniform question was, what is there to do in this town? And so we tried to point them to some of the trails, but it's really difficult to try and direct them to where there's a trail, and there's really not a whole lot of trail. There's the 135 trails, which I put on a map, and we've got them. That map is out at the various places. The Eagle Center's got a bunch and some other maps, but it's a little pocket map. But that's mainly for bicyclists. But we did put the 135 trails on there so that people know where these trails go. But if you try and follow them on the street, they're hard to follow. So I think if we could include those trails, maybe get those back in, so we have some people that we can send them on a trail. Take this, you can walk around here, you can see these sites. There's also a number of walking trails from years before there was a some brochures that are still available that show you some of the different housing options that we had in town and things. So those are out there, and I think those are the kind of things that people, when they come to town, visitors, they want something to do. So this gives them something that's to do, and it's low cost. So I was just thinking, boy, I'd like to see the trails go forward, at least the local city trails. Get those identified and marked so that people can go on those. So that's my 2 cents.
Would this document do that? They'll accomplish that, or is it just gonna lay out like where future trails should maybe go? Not necessarily like produce maps for people to know where to go now.
Well, that's a good question. Tony?
Will it do both? One concern we had, about having staff do it is like, we're maxed.
Right.
I don't know how much extra time Wendy's got or I have to, it's gonna take a complete park inventory, information gathering, you know, I mean, it's gonna be a lot of extra meetings and stuff, and that's why when we talked about it, you know, that's kind of why we included them doing some of that for the 5,000. Otherwise, we're gonna have to, you know, sidestep some other stuff if we're gonna be involved in it. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, maybe if we get a plan from them that has some costs associated with it and some idea of what the end result is, it might be easier to get pictures.
Well,
We've got it kind of here already. I guess, you know, for me, it's so much as we've got bonding requests in for the whole Highway 60 reroute, which changes a lot of things, aspects of our community. And I think that if we had an updated park plan, which would include then the athletic field and connectivity, trails and all that kind of stuff, it helps those who are making decisions about the bonding see that we are continuing forward with this project. These are the periphery things that we can be doing. And I think it needs to be put together by an engineering firm, a consulting firm, rather than city staff. They're busy as it is, they can oversee it, that's not a problem. But so I support this. I think it makes sense for us to do this. We do.
I do also, and I think it'll also bring a complete picture of our future plans for trails. For example, years ago, a couple years back, we approved the Bayou housing project up on Prospect, and that's probably not even mentioned unless we do a plan like this, where we know of all this stuff, because we have staff changes, we have council changes, and things are like that are forgotten. So I think it's important to have a good plan.
That's a good point about the bonding, because it will look good to the bonding people, and what's 10 grand and you're asking for how many millions of dollars? So, no, that's a good point.
I'll move to adopt the motion for the full 25.
All right, I'll go ahead and second then.
All right, we have a motion and second to adopt the approval for the Parks and Trails strategic plan at 25,000 with 15,000 coming from CHIP. Do we have any discussion?
just a question if anyone's interested in serving on the steering committee. Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, thank you.
Brenda's got her hand.
Brenda, okay,
Maybe I can convince Cindy to.
okay. Okay,
Now the extra 10 grand is budgeted already.
yep,
Yeah, it's all there.
The only thing I would point out is we probably should coordinate this with the comp plan as well, because there is a park and section in the comp plan, so just to make sure they stay connected.
mm-hmm,
Will this kind of almost be an update to the comp plan then?
Well, I mean, the comp plan is not really that in depth. I mean, it kind of goes through a few things of what's on here, but I think we would probably update the comp plan to include the park plan plus maybe just
yeah.
different wording, is my guess, so.
Yeah, when I looked at the comp plan, I still struggled to say what is our community's priorities, and that's where the steering committee would be important, because some of it is, where do we start? Tony knows that, so.
Right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're moving on to more planning.
Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Thank you.
Here's
Okay,
the work
so
order.
this is
Okay.
our handout that we have in front of us.
Yes, okay. So I think my conversation with Brian today was a reminder of, that was an intense session. But I just want to make sure that everything is on here, people agree with, because for example, we have as a goal that our little group came up with was review employee compensation as benefits. So that's why we presented the wage and study, but then it felt like, maybe not everyone's on board with that. So this is in front of everybody, and there's paper copies for the audience if you want to grab one. Just want to confirm, like, for example, not to throw, but Craig and I were talking and he was just saying, well, are the athletic field facilities really a priority? And we see that movement of the athletic field facilities over the first step for the Highway 60 reroute. So that's why it's on there. So just again, this commits us to, moving forward the Highway 60 reroute, the athletic field, the barge terminal, identify, attract, and retain businesses. That's really being handled well, I think, by the Port Authority. We talked about in 2024 doing a complete assessment of city facilities. We just accomplished the wastewater and utilities study. We're working on a capital improvement plan that prioritizes and creates time development for capital plans. And then this is a new one. I just thought we need to then continue to prioritize and implement the recommendations from the water and wastewater facilities plan. Financial resources, engage surrounding townships and financial support for the ambulance service. We have a goal around managing external resources like grants and philanthropy. And then continue to do a multi-year financial model and organizational strength, invest in training and development opportunities for employees, review employee compensation and benefits, ensure access to mental health services for employees. And then a new one I just added because it goes along with everything is to continue to update our personnel policies to add clarity to expectations and ensure a positive work environment. So what I'm hoping to do is if people say that I like everything here, then I will be translating this into a work plan that we'll just kind of update on an annual basis with kind of assigned people. And I consider the work plan the internal document, and this with the approval when we're ready, I envision going on our website for the public to view and know what your priorities are.
You want any action tonight?
Yeah, because we don't want to make changes, right?
Yes, and then if you could just note that Tim's vision is in there. City of Wabasha is committed to the preservation of its history, to affordability and high quality of life, a vibrant tourism community, and conserving its exceptional natural environment.
Awesome.
I think this is reflective of what we discussed. I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary, so I move to approve it.
All right, we have a motion on the board and a second to approve the city council strategic plan as outlined by Caroline and in this handout. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay,
Oh, okay, this one's just an FYI.
the grant application.
Yeah, so there was an opportunity for us to apply for funding for an active transportation planning grant. And an active transportation plan is to say, how can we plan our community to help people walk and bike throughout the community? And it was due June 10th. And then if the grant was successful, we would need a team leader who would co-lead the planning process with the statewide consultant and assist with organizing meetings, local engagement, and tracking progress on the plan. So I had initially thought of pursuing this grant, but then just realizing as I did my agenda that we really want to engage people on the downtown plan and the trails plan, that will wait another year. The reason I'd recommend eventually going for it is because I do think it's linked to future infrastructure dollars. So that if you have the plan, then you get the dollars. So just kind of wanted comments, again, speaking to what Brian was saying, is encouraging a bike walk friendly community important for council? Because I'm sitting on a bike walk advocates group, and so was Craig, that was formed, but we don't always know, is that biking and walking a priority for council? You know, is it a priority for me to spend time on it? And I think that's a philosophical question, but just basically, is council interested in us pursuing this grant in a year from now? Which would mean some of my time, again, leading the community in conversations about making Wabasha bike and walk friendlier.
I say we just deal with it in a year when it
Okay.
comes up again,
Okay.
and then, you know,
So
then we'll all know
okay.
if we
All
want
right.
to pursue it or not.
Well, I mean, any grant pursuit is good, so.
You're gonna still be a no?
I'd like to bike and walk everywhere anyways right now, so what
Yeah.
is this gonna do for us?
Well, a number of years ago, before we had Septoberfest, we had Oktoberfest. So they had polka bands come in and there was bratwurst and things under the bridge. And then they had walks around town. They could do a 1 mile or 3 mile, 6 mile. That brought in a lot of people.
That was at Volks March thing.
The
wasn't
Volks March, that's what it was
it? Yeah,
called.
I remember that. Yeah, brought a lot of people.
Yeah. So people are interested in that, and especially if we have a place for them to do it.
I think the more we enhance foot traffic, the more foot traffic we see downtown, which ultimately benefits all the storefronts.
Okay. I am working with the city of Kellogg on a bridge project. They're applying for the grant funding, but I'm lending my professional support. That would be a multi-use bridge going over the Zumbro River. And what we're hoping for is actually could be used by ATVers, snowmobiles. But if you build the bridge, it makes it easier for bicyclists to use that old road. And so I am working on that with them, and we're thinking this would be good for that, but just.
Yeah, we've been trying to connect Wabasha and Kellogg for a long time. And we've got the school that kind of connects us, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways that if that connection can pay off. But it takes more study. Okay, so now we're to number 5, the approval of the contract with Gunderson House Service.
I yanked it, so I can talk.
Yeah,
Twofold. The first one is, instead of using general funds for our $4,000 portion of this, we can use ARPA funds for it. So I was just thinking, as part of a motion to approve, we would take the funds out of ARPA dollars instead of general fund dollars. Secondly, as part of this study, I'd like to see them look at as an option, if we were to look at a partnership with like either Gunderson or Lake City, just so we can see what that would look like. So those are the two things that I wanted to throw in there. And we can talk about it before I like make a motion or anything.
So the funds is already budgeted in our budget, right?
There, I think, Brian, I think what you were thinking though is if could be used by grant dollars, it just saves the operating budget.
I mean, it's in line with what, that money's for, so. It's not like we won't use it on something else later, but I just figured we might as well leave that 4,000 in our general operating budget if we can use the ARPA money.
So I was assuming that would come under the bullet item about explore operational models and collaboration options.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I'm assuming it's already gonna be done.
Okay.
That's what I'm assuming, because we've talked about it a number of times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's part of the deal.
All right, if it's part of the deal, then.
it's not, that's a good point. I didn't realize that because I think, I envisioned that that the initial survey and results and what's studied will be run through myself, but also the ambulance commission, which Tim sits on. So I think we'll just make sure that that's covered.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I hope it covers like 4 or 5 models is what I'm hoping.
Okay.
You know, I'm not totally sure if it's gonna be that extensive, but I'm hoping it is, so.
Some of that has to do with how viable we.
Well, I mean, I think it all is on the table. Do you look at getting rid of it? Do you looking at partnerships? Do you look at getting the LS, BLS? Do you I mean, do you just not do transfers and just do 911 calls? I mean, there's a number of options we should look at. I think they all need to be explored. And I would assume, I know we talked about it when we talked about this to Tom, I think it's Tom, right?
Yes, Tom.
That that's what we're looking for as well. So I'm hoping that's covered.
All right, so we want to go ahead with this? So you want to make the motion, to pay the 10,000 out of Smith and 4,000 out of ARPA, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion to do the ambulance study, business analysis with 10,000 from Smith and 4,000 out of ARPA. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Passes. Okay, that brings us down to donations. Brian, you've handled this in the past. You want to take this?
I'd love to. I'm loading it right now, hang on. Okay, donations. First, for the library, $100 by Mark and Alice Jarsted in memory of Ed Ostrom. $20 by Bruce and Bev Hall in memory of Ed Ostrom. $1,000 by the Rotary Club for summer reading, and $41 birthday donation by Millie Anderson. The next ones are all for fireworks. Bolton and Meg donated $500. 100 from Wabasha Rubbish Removal, 200 from the Kellogg's Lions Club, $25 from Eugene Woodley, $50 from Bruce Kinlan, $200 from Fred and Diane Schoberg, and $500 from the Rotary Club. I do have more checks, and we're doing very well, and we have June left, so we'll have no problem meeting our budget and then still have our reserve just in case we run into a bad year. So thank you, everybody. Next two, downtown decorations, $5,000 from American Center of Philanthropy, says Ruth Doffing, and $1,000 from SMIF. And then we also have a handicap porta potty for the St. Jude's Fishing Tournament was donated by Jason's Portable Toilets, which had $175 value. And that's it.
Okay, well, the city of Wabasha thanks the donors.
I move to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Third, fourth. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
It's like